This is Diana Sullivan in Austin, Texas. I'm demonstrating how to do a beginner's sweater project on the bulky knitting machine. And the next step is to make the sleeve. The sleeve begins with a 2x1 mock rib hem, and like all the other ones that I've done, I'm going to put on a few rows of waste yarn and then a ravel cord. The mock rib is tension 2, and it's a 10-row deep sleeve cuff, so to get the hem you need to go 20 rows. Next, I'll pick up the hem and I will fill in the empty needles. Because the front and back are made in the self-striping yarn, I'm making the sleeves solid because I don't want the raglan seams to be a bunch of stripes that don't match. It would not be possible to match the colors at the raglan seams to the colors on the front and back, which are different widths, and the stripes happen at different thicknesses. So this will be all turquoise, so I don't change the garment yarn. I've picked up the hem, I've hung a comb and a weight. This is a heavy little brass weight, and it'll do a really good job on something like this. I have changed the carriage to tension 4, which is my main tension on this project, and I've changed the row counter to 0. The pattern says to knit 17 rows, then increase, and to repeat that 5 times. So that will increase it to 44 stitches. I've knitted 17 rows, so now I need to increase here and here. It is a 1-stitch increase. Here's how to do the increase on the right hand end of the knitting. You know, hand knitters call this a lifted increase. I'm transferring 2 stitches outward and leaving an empty spot. And I don't want an empty spot, that will create a hole, so I'm picking up the heel of the stitch, which is really, if you look at it, it's the stitch from the row below on the needle beside it. So when we hand knit, we call that picking up the stitch from the row below, or a lifted increase. Machine knitting, this is called a full fashion increase because I have 2 plain stitches that I've moved out before I did the increase. Here I am doing the same increase on the left hand side. The reason that it's so important to do full fashion increases along side seams and sleeve seams is that you'll be able to put the seam in a stitch or 2 in from the edge, and you won't have to deal with funny little changes in your line because of the increases. This will be a straight line all the way up, and this will just grow inside a little bit. Looks a whole lot better to do the full fashion increase. Now I'm repeating the knit 17 rows and increase on each end 4 more times. I want to show one of those little what not to do tips. This is something that people do sometimes by accident. They have moved the 2 stitches out correctly, but then they're wondering what to pick up to fill in the empty needle, and they pick up this horizontal bar between the 2 stitches. Here, I'm going to go ahead and put it on the needle so you can see what it would look like if I did that. That will make a hole. So it's just very important that when you do this increase, that you get this stitch that is directly under this needle right here, this hook to the right. Get the actual stitch, or the heel of a stitch, they say in machine knitting, and put that on the empty needle. After the increases are done, you check to see if you're at the row counter number the pattern says you should be at, and you check to see if you're on the needle that the pattern says that you ought to have. So, for instance, in my case, I'm supposed to have 44 stitches, and I have 22 needles on the right and 22 on the left, so I'm good. Then the pattern has you knit a few more rows after all the increases are done, and it tells you what row counter number to stop at. So that's what I'll do next. Now, exactly like the back, the armhole shaping begins with an instruction to cast off a few stitches at the beginning of the next 2 rows. And I'm doing the same cast off on this that I used on the back and the front for this particular spot in the pattern. And it is the transfer tool cast off that results in a chain edge. So I'm going to go ahead and cast off at the beginning of this row and the beginning of the next row. And then I have to knit 4 rows, and I will do a double decrease. So I'll be back with the double decrease. I've bound off on each side. I'm going to knit 4 rows and then do double decreases on each side. The double decrease is done with the 3-prong transfer tool. And to review, you pick up the 3 stitches, you move over by 2 needles instead of 1. Almost all the time you decrease 1 stitch. Over on the other side, do the same thing. Now, on a sleeve, you don't really even have to watch the row counter. You simply keep doing this until you have a very few needles left. That went very, very fast. That double decrease really speeds up a raglan, and I'm up at the top of the sleeve. I have 4 stitches left. I want to bring it down to 2. So I'm just going to do, I've done this last of the double decrease. Now I'm going to just put a stitch from the right onto this needle and a stitch from the left onto this needle and knit across again. And I'm going to decrease 1 more time so that I can just knit this off on 1 needle, because the sleeve is really very narrow. It goes away to nothing at the top in this pattern. And I will cut the yarn and remove the sleeve. I had 1 weight hanging on this sleeve. So here's the finished sleeve on the wrong side. And then I'm going to flip it over. Here it is on the right side. Really very plain. And here I am putting the knitting needle in to set those hem stitches so that they aren't all spread out, so that they gather like a nice cuff. So there's the sleeve upside down with the hem stretched. The second sleeve is made exactly like the first, and then it'll be time to do some blocking and some sewing together and application of a neckband.